The MLB Trade Deadline is rapidly approaching, and this could be just one of the biggest years yet. There's a ton of flagship names on the market, and there's a bunch of teams that are going to be vying for that talent. Let me know in the comments section your predictions. Who's going to get traded? Who's going to be the big buyers this trade deadline? And leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel, and let's talk about it. The 2024 season has been crazy. You've got some teams way up top. You've got a lot of teams in the middle, and just a few teams that are at the absolute seller, that will be sellers. So I think it's going to make the landscape for the trade market very interesting, because you're going to have a lot of middle-of-the-pack teams have a big decision whether they want to try and make a push for the playoffs, or if they want to take some of their talent and trade it off in hopes to get better, younger players to help them out in the next couple of seasons. And no doubt there's going to be a lot of teams that mistake where they fall within the hierarchy of Major League Baseball, and they could really screw up their franchise for the next couple of years. So I think this is an absolute pivotal trade deadline, and it's really going to help shape really the structure of Major League Baseball for years to come. Of course, we know teams like Baltimore, the Phillies, the Dodgers, they're going to buy at the deadline, but this is my gut reaction for all 30 teams. So I separated it between buyers, teams that are probably going to, more so stay the course. They'll probably make a trade or two, but they're not going to majorly shake things up. And then the teams that are likely going to sell, in my opinion. Now, the buyers, Baltimore, I don't think I have to explain too much right there. The Yankees, same thing. Obviously, they've been having a big skid lately. They've really been slumping, and I think that goes to show even more. They're probably going to look to make some shakeups within that roster to shore themselves up for a postseason run. Cleveland, I think they've set themselves up really well. They could use pitching, but that lineup has been so good this year, which has kind of been a rare feat for the Guardians. Seattle, complete polar opposite. Their pitching couldn't get much better, but nobody is hitting there in Seattle, so they need someone to produce. Houston, they've really turned their season around. They are playing great baseball. They could very well catch Seattle at the top of the AL West, and they don't have a terrific farm anymore. So they don't have a ton of guys ready to trade, but I think they are going to make a run. They've been in the championship series or higher ever since 2017. I don't think they want to lose that. Atlanta, of course, they haven't quite been hitting like you'd expect. So, that could be a spot that they look to upgrade at. Philadelphia, hard to find too many holes within that roster, but I think they're going to try and get better. Milwaukee, now apparently what I've heard is that they're looking to buy. Of course, they're in position to, they're front-running the NL Central by a long margin. I just don't know. They're not really a team that often buys at the deadline, but we'll see. And then the Dodgers, they just love adding new players to their team. Yeah, teams staying the course. Boston, that's a gut reaction. I don't know how much they're really going to do. Their team's been playing very well. They've got the best ERA in baseball. Jarren Duran, Rafi Devers, Tyler O'Neill have been hitting like mad this season, but I don't know if they're going to do anything too crazy. The Twins, they could use a starting pitcher or something, but they've got so much young talent. They've been burned the last couple times they've tried to make moves at the deadline, so I don't know if they want that to haunt them. The Royals, they don't have a terrific farm system, and I like what they've got. The Rangers are going to be a really interesting team because they could be one that falls within the seller category. It just really depends where they see themselves. They've had tons of injuries. A lot of guys, like their two top guys, their top billers, Marcus Semien and Corey Seager, have not been hitting like you expect them to. The Mets also very interesting. You hear talks about guys like Pete Alonso being up on the trade market, but then again, they're also vying for a playoff spot. The Cardinals, kind of same situation. They've got talented vets that other teams would look to add, but do they want to sell? I don't think so, because they're right in the hunt. Pittsburgh, Chicago, Cincinnati, that whole Central Division is all pretty much within the playoff hunt, and you kind of see the same trend for the Padres, the Diamondbacks, and the Giants. The National League is wide open. You really look at just these two teams, the Marlins and the Rockies, that you can say for sure are out of things here. Otherwise, everybody, including the Nationals, realistically could be in the postseason. And then when it comes to the sellers, I think Tampa, they've kind of put themselves in a position where it might be difficult to make the postseason. They've already made a move. Aaron Savale, they traded him to Milwaukee, which he never really contributed. They added him last year. He was great in Cleveland in 2023. He didn't show Tampa any of that in the 2 half seasons that he was a Ray. So they've got guys. We'll talk about some of the big key players that they could move. Toronto, apparently they don't want to move on from their cornerstone players, but they're last in the AL East. It makes a lot of sense. Detroit, they started off a lot better than they're doing right now. They've got some key guys that could really help out some other teams, especially them on shorter deals. The White Sox, they're probably the biggest team to look forward to. Not only do they have the least hope of doing anything this year or probably next year, but they also have some of the best players on the market. The Angels, of course, they're kind of in free fall since Ohtani left. I mean, they weren't necessarily too high up even with Shohei. But now, especially with Trout's dwindling health and, that roster crumbling a bit. The A's, of course, Washington, kind of in a weird spot. They don't have to sell by any means, but that's kind of how I predict that the trade deadline is going to land. And, of course, talk about who's on the market. This is the top 30 players that CBS Sports claims are available. I've looked through this. I don't think some of them will be traded. Number 2 on that list, I would be very surprised if Detroit moved on from Tarek Skubal, but Garrett Crochet. Now, the White Sox do not have to trade him. If you look at both Crochet and Robert, they're under contract for quite some time, and reasonably, Chicago could be back within contention by then. They don't have to trade them, but a guy like Crochet's been so good, his value, I don't know if it's going to get any higher. Like, he's probably been the best, if not like a top 3 pitcher in baseball this year. You would get so much for trading him, especially with that longer-term contract that I think it's probably going to be too sweet of a deal to pass up, and he probably will be landing somewhere else. Tarek Skubal, I just don't see it. Detroit has him until 2027, I believe. If there's someone who's been better than Garrett Crochet, it's probably Tarek Skubal. And Detroit, I like a lot of their young guys. I don't think they're that far off. If it wasn't for the Central over succeeding by so much this year, I think they would be in a lot better standing right now. But I just can't really see Tarek getting traded. Luis Robert Jr., of course, the biggest issue with him is health. He's had a difficult time staying on the field. He's a terrific ball player, good defender. You'd like to see a few less strikeouts, hit for a bit more average, but the power's there, the glove's there, brings so much talent. He's not going to make too much money, and I think he's under contract until 2028. So this is not a rental by any means. You have him long term. Very interested to see where he ends up. I heard the Phillies a bunch. I don't know, like the Dodgers. God, that's just so annoying. How much help do you guys need? If you don't win the championship after all this, oh, good Lord. The Blue Jays, they list both Bo Bichette and Vlad Jr. right there. Again, Toronto has claimed that they want to keep these two. I don't think that they will. At least they won't extend both because they're both going to be free agents after the end of next season. My gut reaction, trade Bo, extend Vlad long term. That's what I would do. I don't dislike Bo, but I don't know if Bo loves Toronto necessarily. And I don't know if he's the best fit with what they have in their farm. So I think it might make a lot of sense to trade him. And then we'll see as far as Vlad Jr. goes. I just saw a recent blurb that Vlad wants to be in Toronto. That could just be him trying to hike up the dollars a little bit. But I really cannot see him playing anywhere else. Although there definitely is teams, Seattle, and Houston would make a ton of sense. Zach Eflin for the Rays. You're going to see a lot of Rays on this list right here. Of course, they already traded Aaron Savale. They've got a lot of starting pitcher talent. A lot of it's injured, so it's difficult really to find where they stand. But of course, we know Tampa churns out pitchers. I mean, they lost Tyler Glasnow, who's been great in LA, but their pitching hasn't been too bad. And especially if guys like Shane McClanahan could stay healthy, you'd think they'd be in a pretty decent spot. Mason Miller. I don't think the A's trade him. I really don't. They very well could. They're going to get a bunch for him. He's very young. He's very talented. He might not have to be a relief pitcher his whole career, but his stuff kind of exudes more in that closing pitcher role than having him start. The whole reason he's been in relief this season is because they didn't want to stress his arm too much. They didn't want him to get injured because I know he had issues last season. I don't know. Every contender, damn straight, everybody would want Mason Miller. If the offer's too good, be hard to pass up if you're Oakland. Nate Eovaldi for the Rangers. I really don't think Texas is going to sell. I'm sure you'll hear a lot of Max Scherzer being brought up, Nate Eovaldi, Kirby Yates, a trio of great pitchers, aging pitchers that are making a decent bit of money, although I don't think Yates is making too much. But I don't think so. I think the Rangers, they won the World Series last year. They want to keep trying for contention. I don't think they're going to move on quite yet. Randy Arozarena was a name a lot of people talked about before the offseason began. Made his first All-Star team last year. And myself, I was like, why the fuck would they trade Randy Arozarena? Maybe they should have traded Randy. He's not been terrible this year, but he's underperforming to what you expect. I'm not sure quite what his value is. You know, kind of an inconsistent defender and a hitter at times too. Brings a lot of fun to a team for sure. I don't know how many prospects fun gets you, but I think Randy still could yield a decent trade offer from somebody if Tampa decides to move on from him. Cody Bellinger with Chicago. I don't think the Cubs are going to sell. I would be a bit surprised. Of course, they bought in quite a bit. You know, they brought back Cody Bellinger. They signed Shota Imanaga. The year prior, they got Dansby Swanson in. They spent a lot of money. I don't know if it's too much money. There's a lot of money there in Chicago. Even if they're not winning a ton, they're still selling a ton of tickets. We'll see. I don't think Cody gets traded, though. Isaac Paredes is another one that you're going to hear a lot for Tampa. He's been good again this year. Made the All-Star team. Not sure if he gets traded. He's under contract, I think, until 2028. I think Randy makes more sense to trade than Isaac if you're going to do anything for Tampa. Ryan McMahon, I think this makes sense. He's been in Colorado his whole career. He's playing really good baseball. A lot of people talk about the Yankees in conversation with Ryan McMahon. You know, New York kind of struggling in some of their offense, and a great glove at third as well would really help shore up that infield. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think Ryan McMahon would be a good guy to get this deadline. Jazz Chisholm for the Marlins. Again, a guy that has had issues staying on the field. He's not been playing terrific defense in center field since he made the move last season. He was better last year than he is this year when you look at the numbers. I don't know what his value is. Of course, Miami already traded Luis Ariz earlier this season. I'm sure Jesus Luzardo is going to follow suit. We'll see. It makes a lot of sense, and there's growing buzz on Jazz's name. Jack Flaherty's the perfect guy to trade, not Tarek Skubal. He's got just this 1 year. It was a single prove-it deal. Jack Flaherty struggled quite a bit these last couple seasons. Really firing the baseball right now. This is the ideal spot, just like what the Royals did last year. They did a 1 year prove-it with the Aroldis Chapman. They got Cole Reagans. I think very similar thing could happen with the Tigers and Jack Flaherty. Eric Fetty. Again, the White Sox, I think he got a little bit longer, 3 years after he played in Korea last year. Pitching well, and that's going to get you something at the deadline. They have 3 excellent trade chips between Fetty, Crochet, and Robert. They could really take their farm system, which isn't bad by any means right now, but really take it to be one of the elite in all of minor league baseball. Jose Soriano for the Angels, I think it's very clear they're going to sell here. They've got a couple pitchers, Carlos Esteves, and I imagine Tyler Anderson's going to be on this list as well. Of course, last year they tried, to vie for contention. Maybe it was a last-ditch effort to keep Ohtani with the Angels, prove that they can make the playoffs, and that would be enough to keep him. Obviously, it didn't work very well. They traded for Giolito, Ronaldo Lopez. They brought in a lot of new faces. All of them are gone by now, basically, and they got burned. They lost both the guys they traded for and a bunch of prospects to get said players. So I imagine it's going to be a fire sale in Anaheim to try and work back some of that farm system. Elias Diaz, also another name I don't hear talked about quite as much. He's a pretty good offensive catcher. All-Star Game MVP last year for what that means too. And I think this is the last year on his deal. He's going to be a free agent, so it makes perfect sense to trade. Michael Kopech, who is now a Boris client, which is going to make his free agency period pretty interesting. He just had an immaculate inning against the Twins. 9 pitches, 9 strikes, 3 strikeouts to close out and save the game for Chicago. Again, another guy. Fireballer, has issues commanding the strike zone at times, but definitely has some stuff, and I think we'll definitely find a new team this trade deadline. Taylor Ward, surprised Brent Rooker's all the way down at 21. Yeah, I think these two, once again, we talked about the Angels. Almost anybody who's aging and somewhat soon going to be a free agent's probably going to be gone, you would expect. They're only going to keep select few players like Logan O'Hoppe, you imagine, is for sure off limits. Brent Rooker makes a ton of sense for the A's. He's been hitting very well last 2 seasons now, and I'm sure a lot of teams, you look at, like Seattle, who's been struggling, could definitely use his services. Tommy Pham had a strong start to the season, not playing bad by any means. Not sure exactly if you get a ton out of him, but would make a lot of sense to trade him and see if you can get anything. Cal Quantrill and Austin Gomber for the Rockies. Pretty rare that you see good pitching in Colorado. Their numbers are certainly going to be skewed a bit due to the course effect. I think they could play pretty good ball somewhere else. That's something I could see maybe for one of those middle-of-the-pack teams that might not really look to buy. They try and go low risk and get a Quantrill, Gomber, or a Tyler Anderson. They don't sell the farm to get a Garrett Crochet. Talking about like my Twins. I think that's more realistic. I think that kind of rounds things out. Tanner Scott is there. Couple relief pitchers. Kind of shocked that these two are so far down. Both all-stars, both having really good seasons. And this a lot of time is what you can get underrated prospect that really blossoms for. They're kind of under the radar. They're both, well, especially Kirby Yates, older, and I think both Texas, even if they don't want to sell, Kirby Yates, a reliever, is a bit more expendable than someone like a front-end starter like a Nate Eovaldi would be, and they could look to move on from there. But that's kind of how I make heads or tails out of the trade deadline. I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. There's a ton of names on the market. We didn't even talk about like a Pete Alonso, for example, that they claim is on the market. Again, the Mets are in contention for sure. He will be a free agent by the end of this season. They also didn't mention Jesus Luzardo whatsoever on that list, which was kind of interesting. I think he is like a near guarantee. The Marlins don't have to trade him, but if they're going to tear down their roster, you'd think he's probably the most coveted player on that team right now. Also, Christian Walker is a name that they didn't talk about on this list. I don't think he's getting traded. I don't think Arizona, they had a very aggressive offseason. I don't think they're ready to just tear it down again. It wouldn't really make sense. You get to the World Series, you don't quite win it. Yes, he'll be a free agent, but I think you want to bring back talent, not look to traded away. But let me know what you guys think about the trade deadline coming soon. We've just got about 3 weeks until all hell breaks loose. I'm excited. Leave a like down below if you guys enjoyed and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.